What if the trash you throw away could become the most beautiful part of your garden? In today's video on Revive Nature, we'll explore creative, real-world ideas to turn forgotten junk into stunning garden borders, patio art, and cozy backyard details. No fancy tools, no big budget, just heart and imagination. We've added timestamps so you can jump to any idea that inspires you. And if something sparks a question, drop it in the comments. I'll be there. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't just watch, build something. Start with what you already have. Make it yours. Maybe I'm just another voice in your feed. But behind every scene is a real home, a real story, and a dream trying to survive. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a creator. You're keeping this dream alive, one honest click at a time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for believing. There's something deeply magical about walking under an arch in the garden, a gentle threshold between the ordinary and the enchanted. In a tiny backyard tucked behind an old brick cottage, someone found a way to turn everyday waste into this very kind of wonder. Two strong stalks of green bamboo rise like sentinels, their natural bends and textures left untouched. Woven through their structure are dozens of painted plastic bottles, their forms cut and twisted into soft petals, leaves, and ornaments, each one catching sunlight like stained glass. The bottles, once discarded and forgotten, now shimmer in hues of emerald, amber, cobalt, and rose, forming a cascading garland that dances in the breeze. The arch marks the entrance to a narrow flower path, where golden marigolds, deep violet asters, and soft pink anemones bloom in joyful contrast to the rich greens. Beneath the arch, shadows flicker gently as the wind brushes through sedum heads heavy with fall color. Every step along the path invites the visitor further, not just into the garden, but into a different rhythm of life, slower, more observant, more poetic. At night, tiny solar lights hidden in the arch's base begin to glow, illuminating the translucent bottle petals with a warm, quiet light. It feels like the garden is whispering secrets only the night can understand. This project wasn't built from a blueprint. It began with a pile of old bottles saved from the recycling bin and a few stalks of bamboo pruned from the back fence. But it evolved, with time, love, and a few strokes of colorful paint, into something that speaks louder than store-bought decor ever could. It speaks of care, resourcefulness, and beauty born from what others throw away. Now, this little arch is more than a decoration. It's a story of transformation, one told in plastic and bamboo, in color and shadow, in every flower that grows underneath. It reminds everyone who passes through, beauty doesn't have to be bought. Sometimes, it just needs to be noticed. In a quiet corner of a vintage backyard, a row of old metal drums, once forgotten in a dusty warehouse, has taken on a new life. Not as storage, not as scrap, but as vibrant cradles of blooming color. This is not just a garden, it is an open-air gallery of reinvention. Each drum, carefully cut and cleaned, is painted in hues that speak of fall, warm ochres, deep cranberry reds, soft pastel blues, and sage greens. They line the weathered white fence like cheerful sentinels, each holding a bouquet of living art. Marigolds tumble from one side, their golden heads nodding like sleepy suns. In another, purple asters stretch upward toward the light. Sedum and Japanese anemones spill gently over the edges, softening the hard metal with delicate movement. This is the kind of scene that invites you to linger, to run your fingers along the painted surface, to lean in close and smell the sweet scent of late blooming flowers. It's the marriage of rustic charm and intentional color, a whimsical blend of farmhouse grit and cottage romance. Beneath the drums, the fence is no longer just a boundary. It has become the canvas, the background, the stage on which this garden story plays out. And what a story it tells, of resourcefulness, of color born from rust, of function wrapped in floral elegance. The beauty here isn't just in the flowers or the colors, but in the contrast, the rough drum edges softened by vines, the faded wood brightened by painted metal, the quiet backyard transformed by vision and a few coats of color. It's a reminder that gardens aren't just grown. They're built from imagination, from memory, from pieces of the past reimagined. On crisp autumn mornings, when the sun hits the drums just right and the flowers reach full bloom, the fence glows. And in that glow, there's a simple kind of joy, the kind that only comes when something discarded is loved again. Some gardens speak loudly, bursting with color and drama. Others, like this one, whisper. Here in a quiet back corner, nestled between mossy stone and fallen leaves, is a path edged not with store-bought borders, but with what nature offered freely, weathered tree roots and smooth, time-worn pebbles. It's a design that doesn't demand attention, but gently invites you to pause, breathe, and notice. The roots curve and twist like frozen waves, their bark darkened with age and softened by rain. They cradle polished pebbles, soft grays, chalky whites, and muted browns, carefully arranged by hand. No glue, no cement, only balance, intuition, and the natural fit between what's solid and what shifts. This edging doesn't scream DIY. It breathes harmony. It feels as though the earth itself decided where each root belonged. That's the charm of Japanese garden aesthetics, wabi-sabi, beauty in imperfection, in simplicity, in the quiet passing of time. Along the path, fall flowers bloom with restraint. Soft ivory chrysanthemums stand tall beside pale pink anemones, while deep red sedum tucks close to the ground. Marigolds add a touch of sun. Each plant chosen not just for color, but for texture, height, and how it interacts with the stones and roots around it. There's no need for fences here. The border is the boundary, gentle yet clear. Visitors instinctively follow the curve of the roots, their steps slower, their voices hushed. In the golden hour light, this part of the garden becomes almost spiritual. The roots catch shadows. The pebbles shine. A breeze rustles through nearby bamboo, and the scent of the blossoms carries on the air. It feels sacred, though no words are spoken. This was not built overnight. It was shaped slowly, by the gathering of materials, the laying of stones, and the quiet observation of how it all fits together. It didn't cost money. It cost attention. And now, it gives something priceless in return: peace. Beneath the soft wooden beams of a weathered pergola, something unexpected sways gently in the breeze, a collection of clay jugs, old and once forgotten, now reborn as hanging planters that bloom with life and color. Each jug, or kendi, tells its own story. Some are chipped at the rim. Others still bear faint traces of soot and watermarks from decades past. But here, in the garden, they've been washed, painted in soft vintage hues, pale turquoise, muted coral, worn ivory, and tied with twine to the crossbeams above. They hang at different heights like musical notes on invisible lines. Inside them, tiny gardens flourish. Orange marigolds spill over the lips of the jugs like fire. Deep purple asters rise proudly from their earthy base, while trailing sedum and pale Japanese anemone cascade downward like flowing hair. As the wind moves, the jugs gently turn, revealing their hand-painted brush strokes and patina of age. They don't clang or creak, just sway. The air is filled with a subtle mix of soil, flour, and warm terracotta. Below, the ground is soft with moss, ringed by the colors of autumn bloom. The pergola itself becomes a portal, a living ceiling where trash has become treasure, where humble objects now elevate the soul. It's easy to forget these were once kitchen vessels, cast aside when cracked or outdated. But now, high above a small patio or nestled in a corner of a tiny yard, they serve a new, more poetic purpose. Children love them. Guests are enchanted by them. Birds hover near them. And those who know the language of gardens will smile quietly at their simplicity. This creation didn't require perfection. It needed only vision, and a willingness to look at something old and see its future. The kind of beauty that happens when form meets function, when time adds texture, and when a jug once filled with water now overflows with joy. In a world that forgets things too fast, this pergola remembers. And it invites everyone who sits beneath its shade to remember too, that art can hang from a string, and life always finds a way to bloom again. In a place where most see waste, the garden sees potential. Lining the curved edge of a backyard flower bed is a collection of forgotten things, twisted sheet metal, broken appliance parts, and discarded gears, each piece lovingly transformed into a vibrant border that feels more art installation than garbage heap. This isn't just junk. It's a story of transformation. Each scrap has been cleaned, smoothed, and painted in rich earthy tones, rustic reds, copper browns, moss greens, and antique yellows. Once sharp and forgotten, they now form a fluid edge that rises and falls like a gentle wave around the flower beds. It draws the eye and defines the space, not with perfection, but with character. Against this metallic rhythm, nature plays its counterpoint. Golden marigolds burst in clusters, their rich saffron petals echoing the warmth of the painted metal. Nearby, asters bloom in dusty purples, and sedum fills the spaces between like a textured tapestry. Chrysanthemums stand tall like sentinels of the season. There's a satisfying contrast here, the hard and the soft, the man-made and the natural, the past and the present. The metal may once have lined factory floors or car interiors, but now it borders life. And in that shift, there is meaning. Visitors often stop and ask, "Where did you buy that edging?" And the answer always brings a smile, "I didn't. I saved it from the scrapyard." That's the charm. This kind of beauty doesn't exist in catalogs. It's forged in creativity, in paintbrush strokes, in hours spent digging and arranging. It's born from the belief that something ugly can still become beautiful, that even the most forgotten objects can find purpose again. At golden hour, when the marigolds glow and the metal reflects the setting sun, this border becomes more than a decoration. It becomes a lesson in reuse, in color, in resilience. And maybe that's what every garden should whisper to those who walk through it. Nothing is wasted when seen with love. Far from the shore, nestled in a quiet little backyard, a glimpse of the sea comes to life, not with water, but with plastic. A simple white wooden fence has become a canvas, painted not with brush or pigment, but with sunlight and recycled bottles. Once cast aside, blue plastic water bottles have been cut, sculpted, and shaped into an underwater dream. Curling waves, playful fish, swaying strands of seaweed, and coral branches rising in delicate forms. Each piece is arranged like a mosaic, some translucent, others painted in deeper hues of sapphire and turquoise. When the sun hits them, the entire seascape shimmers. The light dances through the plastic, casting rippled shadows on the fence and the soil below. It feels as if the ocean itself is breathing through the garden. Below this floating artwork, the land blooms in contrast. Marigolds and asters form soft clusters of gold and violet. Chrysanthemums lean toward the light, while sedum hugs the ground like cool sea foam. Even Japanese anemones, white and windswept, seem to echo the movement above. This creation wasn't expensive. It didn't come from a store. It came from a question: what if trash could tell a story? The answer is here, along this quiet fence. It's a child's fantasy, an artist's experiment, and a gardener's pride, all woven into one. The ocean theme brings whimsy and calm to the space, adding color without clashing, movement without mess. It becomes a conversation piece. Guests ask how it was made. Children run their fingers across the fish fins. Neighbors peek over the fence, inspired. And every time a breeze passes through the plastic seaweed, the fence sighs like a shoreline touched by wind. This isn't just decor. It's emotion. It's imagination. It's the triumph of creativity over consumption. And as the garden shifts into fall, As leaves drop and flowers change, the seascape remains, reminding everyone who sees it that the ocean lives not just in water, but in memory, in color, and sometimes, in plastic that refuse to be forgotten. In the smallest spaces, magic often hides in plain sight. Nestled in a tiny backyard corner, barely the width of a parked car, stands a miniature gazebo. Not grand, not polished, but deeply enchanting. Its frame is built from sturdy bamboo poles, their surfaces still marked with natural knots and growth rings. Around the base, a sculpture of roots curves and weaves, each one exposed like veins of the earth, twisted from years of quiet growth. These roots weren't harvested, they were rescued. Pulled from a dying tree, preserved and placed as living history at the feet of the gazebo. Their gnarled forms now cradle flower beds, seat small stones, and host clusters of moss that gather in the crevices like whispers of the forest floor. The gazebo rises gently, not as a centerpiece, but as a hidden treasure. It invites rather than boasts. Inside, a small bench sits quietly under the open rafters. Overhead, string lights softly drape like fireflies at dusk. Around the base, the world bursts in autumn color, deep orange marigolds, violet asters, pale chrysanthemums dancing in the wind, and sedum that blushes deeper with each cooling night. Nearby, Japanese anemones rise like lanterns on thin stems. Their petals flutter, their presence gentle, as if honoring the nature reclaimed in this tiny shelter. The contrast is what makes it sing. Hard bamboo, wild roots, soft flowers. A grounded space that still feels lifted, sacred, touched by something old and wise. And perhaps that's the charm. The feeling that this isn't built, but discovered. Like the gazebo has always been here, growing slowly out of the earth, as if it belongs. This kind of garden architecture doesn't come from blueprints or catalogs. It grows from what's around you, forgotten bamboo poles leaning behind sheds, twisted roots too beautiful to throw away, and the dream of having a quiet space to pause, breathe, and be. Now, in the cool of autumn, when the flowers are brightest and the air smells of leaves, this gazebo is more than a structure. It's a memory made tangible. A retreat for the soul. A place where small things, roots, flowers, bamboo, time, come together and become something whole. Autumn arrives like a soft whisper in the garden, cooler air, richer light, and a call to sit a little longer, breathe a little deeper. In a corner patio framed by flowers, something unexpected catches the eye: benches made not from wood or metal frames, but from cut-open oil drums, reborn in color. Each drum has been halved, sanded, and painted with care. No rust remains, only soft shades of mustard yellow, sage green, cranberry red, and cream blush. On top, thick cushions are placed, stitched with vintage floral fabric, as if they were made from old cottage curtains. The benches don't just offer seating, they offer story. Guests who settle onto them often smile. There's something playful and grounding in the curve of the metal, the warmth of the paint, the contrast between industrial form and garden softness. Around them, marigolds bloom in cheerful bursts, asters add splashes of purple, and chrysanthemums, tall and proud, stand like guardians of the season. The benches are more than function. They're proof that even hard, discarded things can be made soft again. This patio isn't large. Just enough space for 2 benches, a small table, and a border of sedum and Japanese anemones that lean gently toward the light. Yet somehow, it feels like a room, a private nook in nature, a quiet reading spot, a tea corner for late afternoon daydreams. At dusk, candles flicker beside the drum legs. The colors take on a warmer glow, and the garden hums with early evening calm. Here, time stretches. It asks nothing. It simply offers a place to sit, beautifully, thoughtfully, creatively. These benches didn't come from a catalog. They came from imagination, from leftover materials that someone refused to throw away. And now they sit proudly, surrounded by life, blending comfort and character in a way that no plastic chair ever could. So if you ever find an old drum, don't toss it. Paint it. Place it. Sit with it under falling leaves and rising stars. Let it hold not just your body, but the weight of your day, gently, colorfully, completely. As twilight begins to settle over the garden, a soft trail of light flickers to life, not from store-bought steaks, but from bottles. Simple bottles. Reused, repainted, and reborn into something quietly magical. This winding path, barely wide enough for 2 footsteps, snakes gently between blooming borders. On either side, bottles stand like gentle sentinels. Some are amber glass, others clear plastic painted in soft pastels or muted greens. They are buried halfway into the soil, neck down, their bottoms open just enough to cradle small solar lights or fairy lanterns inside. As the sun fades, the lights begin to glow. Not harsh, not glaring, but warm, steady, inviting. They don't overpower the garden. They enhance it. Light spills gently across golden marigold petals, reflects off the deep purple of asters, and dances across the lacy shadows of Japanese anemone leaves. The sedum catches the glow like tiny cups of silver fire. This isn't just a walkway. It's an experience. There's no pavement, no plastic edging. Just stones placed by hand, moss creeping between them, and bottles salvaged from kitchens, recycling bins, and neighborhood cafes. Some have been painted with tiny floral patterns. Others left plain, letting the light speak for them. Children love to follow the path with bare feet, pretending it leads to a fairy house. Guests pause and ask, "Where did you buy these?" And always, the answer is the same: they weren't bought. They were found. This is the spirit of the garden, not consumption, but creation. The bottles, once trash, are now treasures. They hold light. They guide footsteps. They turn a simple walk into a moment of wonder. In fall, when the air is crisp and the flowers rich with color, the path becomes even more poetic. Fallen leaves catch the light. The garden sighs with seasonal beauty. And each bottle becomes not just a source of glow, but a reminder that something overlooked can still lead the way. So when you see an empty bottle next time, don't throw it. Picture it in a garden, softly glowing under stars. Picture it showing someone the way, gently, quietly, beautifully. The fence was once plain, a simple divider of space, weathered by sun and rain. But now, it catches the eye from across the garden like a piece of outdoor art. Because someone saw beauty in what others discarded. Junkyard gears, rusted solid, forgotten in the dust. Each gear has been revived. The rust scrubbed away, the surface primed, and then carefully painted, some in matte copper, others in bold mustard, vintage teal, or muted cranberry. They are mounted onto the wooden fence like sunbursts, like wheels of time, like strange mechanical flowers blooming above the marigolds. Their arrangement feels deliberate but organic, some clustered, others spaced wide like constellations. At certain hours, when sunlight slices through the yard, their shadows dance along the planks. And when dusk falls, the last of the light lingers in their curves, as if reluctant to let go. Beneath them, the garden thrives. Sedum carpets the base like soft moss. Asters reach up in violet strokes. Japanese anemones sway gently, their long stems brushing against cool metal. Chrysanthemums glow in the gold of fall, echoing the fence's warmth. It's not just decoration. It's declaration. Here, in this farmhouse garden, the old is not abandoned. It is celebrated. The gears speak of labor, of time, of forgotten machines. But now, they frame a scene of life and color. They do not turn anymore, but they move something deeper: curiosity, memory, joy. Guests touch them, surprised by their weight. Children point to their shapes, asking what they once belonged to. And the gardener smiles, knowing that none of the gears had to match, they only had to be seen. And that is the heart of it. This fence isn't just a backdrop for flowers. It's a story wall. A place where metal meets petal, and where function becomes form. In a world that throws too much away, this small act of reuse feels powerful. Not just because it saves, but because it transforms. Because it reminds everyone who sees it that the old still matters, and can still be beautiful. Especially when painted with purpose, framed in nature, and hung beneath a sky that always notices what we create.